Thank you for being here and welcome to Better Together, Mutualism Inspired Wildlife Conservation. I am Lisa Schnell, the facilitator of this program and the presentation today. So one of the things that I've been interested in is to work with artists and scientists to sort of get beyond the idea that artists are there just to illustrate a scientific paper or create a logo or communicate, scientific work that is already completed to a wider audience. I've been interested in trying to find a common language, to find points of connection, to create an experience, and to really ask sort of what can we learn from each other as artists and scientists. And this sort of collaboration is important because to address the wildlife conservation and biodiversity issues that we're all facing, we really need creative solutions. Mutualism is defined as a biological relationship that's shared between life forms in which all the participating organisms benefit and may in fact even depend upon each other for survival.
The mutualism example that I've chosen is fig and fig wasp. It's a mutualism that evolved almost about 80 million years ago, and it's an obligate mutualism, which means that this relationship, this mutualistic relationship, is vital for both fig reproduction of both the fig and the fig wasps. So usually what happens is that the fig is a closed clubose inflorescence, and the female wasps can make their way through one particular part of the fig, and it serves as a nursery. The inflorescence serves as a nursery, which nurtures the eggs that are laid by the female fig wasps inside, and then the fig wasps come out of the eggs. And then what happens is usually it's the males that come out first, then they meet with the female fig wasps, and the males bore a little hole so that the female wasps, which are now carrying eggs, can exit the fig and then move on to other figs and lay their eggs. The way this mutualism works, the way the fig wasps are able to locate fig trees which have the inflorescences in the right condition, in the right stage, is through volatile organic chemicals, compounds that are emitted by the inflorescences. So it's a very interesting example of chemical ecology facilitating a mutualistic relationship.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Tuttle. I'm a muralist and a public artist based in Boston, Massachusetts. And the mutualism that I chose to talk about was the one between humans and not only the gut biome, but also your skin, kind of the body biome itself. There's research saying that the microbial cells outnumber human cells at a ratio about 1.3 to 1. So we're actually more something else than we are human, which I kind of love. So obviously there's a huge mutual benefit to both parties. We're giving the microbial cells a warm, moist place to live and reproduce. And they give us things like, I read that there was 90 to 95% of our serotonin is actually produced by the biome in our gut. So basically they keep us running and functioning as human beings, and it kind of blurs the line between us and them. And I think that's super interesting. So that's what I wanted to talk about today.
I'm Barbara, I'm from Italy, and I'm a scientist in urban sustainable development with a little passion for art. And about my mutualism, so when my sister was 3 years old, she was obsessed with the animated movie Finding Nemo. And almost every day that movie was on our TV. So even if I was a teenager, I watched it too. And this was how I got fond of the little clownfish and the anemone, which is a mutualistic relationship in which the anemone provides the clownfish with protection via its stinging tentacles, while the clownfish clean the anemone, drives away predators, and provides nutrients.
Okay, hi. Yeah, my name is Georgia. Um, I would describe myself as an early career scientist. I'm very interested in asking applied conservation questions, and I have a special love of amphibians. Um, and I'm currently in Montana. My example that I'd like to share is a spotted salamander and green algae mutualism, um, which I think is really cool because it happens kind of on a cellular level. So the spotted salamander, when they lay their egg masses in vernal pools. Um, this green algae colonizes some of the egg masses and the eggs themselves. And then the relationship is mutually beneficial because while the developing embryo is kind of like creating those waste products of carbon dioxide and nitrogen, then the green algae is kind of consuming those and creating oxygen, which is necessary for the development of the embryo. And so they've done studies that show that the egg masses that have this green algae kind of develop more quickly than those that don't. And um, I thought this was a really cool example, not only because it's a familiar one, I've seen it when I was living in the Northeast, but also because it occurs between two very different non-human organisms. And so I was kind of fascinated by the idea of what would the communication look like between these two organisms. It would be very different from kind of what we know as communication. And also it's a closer association than they found that it's a closer association than they first thought. So they found algal cells within the reproductive tract of adult salamanders and also within the embryonic cells themselves of the larva. So I thought that was cool too, that the mutualism goes deeper than you can kind of see with your eye.
Hi, I'm Valentina. I'm a natural science illustrator and I am based on Germany, Munich. And lately I have been working a lot with wild bees, and that's why I chose this mutualism. And I think most of us know about this mutualism through pollination, where the bees feeds on the nectar and pollen of the plant, and also the plant needs the bees for propagating. But maybe sometimes we think that all the bees can go to all the flowers and take all the possible nectar, but it's not like that. And this case is a very specialized bee that only goes to a very specific flower, which is the yellow loosestrife bee. And she goes to the garden loosestrife and she takes the oil of this flower and she feeds from this oil, from this plant only. That's why I thought it was interesting because it's very, very specialized.
Hi, I'm Lee Fernside, and I'm an artist in Ohio. And I chose dolphins and orcas, although this is a newly observed behavior, so part of why I was interested is that there's still debate whether this is just cooperation or mutualism. There's a group pod of orcas off of Vancouver Island who actually work with the dolphins rather than eat them on hunting. And they also provide protection to these dolphins from other roaming orcas. I liked that ambiguity, whether it's a mutualism or a specific behavior, because ambiguity is a good place to live in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea. I'm a writer based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I've been studying the trees in the Atlantic rainforest for a while now for a book. And I was very interested and I have been able to see in person how this mutualism between Ambai trees and Aztec ants work. Sorry for the drawing because I'm not an artist, but that's my rendering of the way in which Aztec ants live inside the trunk. You can see the hollow there. It's a hollow trunk Ambai trees have with sections. And the ants can go in, they make small holes, live inside, and benefit not only from the shelter, but also from the Mullerian bodies that the tree produces for them as nutrients. And in exchange, they pull or kill the vines that may climb the tree. This is a place full of vines and things growing, trying to catch the light. And also it has been recently proved that they can heal wounds in the tree by munching certain leaves and placing them in the wounds and in 24 hours, the wound is healed. I thought it fascinating, and it's a very common tree, but with a very interesting and mysterious mutualism.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amber, and I am coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts. I have a bit of an art science background, both, but I'm currently leaning more towards science in the restoration field, working at a watershed organization with a current focus on dam removal. So this mutualism, unrelated to that, I pulled from Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. And it's the plants and mycorrhizal fungi mutualism, where the fungi's mycelium, so the white in this image, weave into the plant's roots and they trade water and nutrients for sugars and fats. And this relationship is quite old and is what allowed aquatic algae to thrive on land. And today, 90% of land plants actually depend on this mutualism. So the scale of the dependency I found quite interesting. And then another part of this that Sheldrake highlighted was that while nutrients can move through the soil, so too can poisons. And so while the plants and fungi depend on each other, there's this element of trust in the relationship. And so kind of to extrapolate from that, I think about it as a bit of a metaphor for kind of the intentionality and awareness with which we are entering our mutualisms between artists and scientists and wanting to make sure it's an additive relationship.
Hi, I'm Julie Ellis. I'm an ecologist based at the University of Pennsylvania in the US. And I just started new work in urban ecology, and I'm interested in the ways in which scientists and artists can co-create. And I chose the example of the honey guide, which is the little brown bird in the picture. So the mutualism is honey guides and humans. And in this relationship, African honey guides know where bees' nests are located and like to eat beeswax. And humans know how to subdue the bees using smoke and by opening the nests with axes. So by working together, the two species can locate the trees and the bees, overcome the bees' defenses, and gain access to the nest, thus providing beeswax for the honey guides, which they like to eat, and honey for the humans. And this a specialized relationship is a very rare example of human-animal cooperation. And according to researcher Dr. Claire Spottiswoode, a specialist in bird behavioral ecology in Africa, she says that what's remarkable about this relationship is that it involves free-living wild animals whose interactions with humans have probably evolved through natural selection over the course of hundreds of thousands of years. And I chose this example because as a biologist, I have a lot of anxiety about what's happening to biodiversity in the world and what humans are contributing negatively to biodiversity. And I like this example because it demonstrates how humans and animals can collaborate in a way that benefits them both.
How has your thinking about science and art collaboration changed or developed over the course of CoLab?
Something that came up, and Georgia shared it, and I think Lee shared it very early on, and it always stuck with me, was just making sure this is a mutually beneficial experience and collaboration for both parties. So if the artist is helping the scientist communicate the research, what is the artist kind of gaining or taking away from the experience as well?
I also liked the idea that art translates science to touch on emotion. In science, you're trained to be very objective, of course, because you don't want to be biased in the way you're reporting or thinking about your results. So it tends to seem or maybe come across to an outsider as a bit cold. And there's reasons for that, like good reasons for the way we do it to avoid bias. But I like this idea that art can kind of touch on the emotion involved in our work as scientists.